In this lesson, we will see how we can apply filters to view layers in ArcGIS Online using the ArcGIS API for Python. We're going to apply attribute filters and spatial filters. So open up the view layer definitions.py script from the views folder. We saw in the previous video how the item manager view manager property can create a view manager object and use the create method to create a view from a hosted feature service. We can also create a view from a feature layer collection object that we're going to see in this video. And we're going to add more customization to our views. In the first example, we are going to use the item object returned from the view manager create method and apply layer definition queries that limits the features and records shown in the view. In our second example, we are going to use the view manager get definitions method that will return a list of view layer parameters. We're going to apply a spatial filter to our created view. In order to create the spatial filter, up top we are importing the spatial filter and spatial relationship classes, along with the polygon and spatial reference. First, access ArcGIS Online using our GIS class and supplying in our home string. We'll assign our GIS object to a variable called AGOL. We then use our GIS object content manager get method, supplying in our feature service item ID, which I'll paste in now with my notepad. The get method will return an item object. We saw in the previous video that we could use this item object to create a view, and here we are going to set definition queries for our feature layers and tables in the view. But you can also create a view from a feature layer collection object. Here we're using our feature layer collection class from item method, supplying in our item object as the item parameter. The from item method will return a feature layer collection object that we're assigning to a variable called FLC. Now there is a known issue when you are creating a view with a subset of layers, that the subset of layers is also enacted on the parent hosted feature layer. This is at API version 2.4.3, but I do have it under good authority that at 2.4.4 this issue will be fixed. For now, I'm going to show a workaround where we use the item data get method to get the JSON definition for the item object. I'm going to assign that to a variable called item data, and then once we've created our view, we will update the item object with the original JSON definition. Here we're using our feature layer collection object manager property, which is a feature layer collection manager object, which has a create view method. We're using the required name parameter, which are setting as park trails layer def view 1. We're using a subset of our layers, and we're omitting the county boundaries layer. We're using all our tables, and we're setting our capabilities with all the capabilities except the ability to delete a feature or a record. Once we've created our view item, the create view method will return an item object. We're assigning that to a variable called view item. We then update the original hosted feature service with its item data so that all layers and tables display. Now that we have our view item, we're going to create a set of dictionaries, each with a key of a view definition query and a value of an SQL query to filter each layer and table. So this will be for our trail viewpoint layers, our trails, our park boundaries, and our park maintenance information table, and also for our reviews. We then use the view item layers property to access each layer and table individually, and we're using the update definition to update the view definition query for each of our layer and tables. So for tables, we will of course use the tables property for our item object. Just to recap, we first create the view, and then we are applying a view definition query to each feature layer and table that will limit the features and records shown in the view. I'll run the script. With the script complete, I'm going to head over to ArcGIS Online. Here I'm in my content page where I have my park trails hosted feature service and the views created from the previous video. I'm going to refresh the page. We now have our park trails layer def view 1 hosted view that I'm going to click into. Our subset of layers and our tables. I click into data. We will see that we are limited in the features that we can see. We set FDM park view and FDM statue for our trail viewpoints. For our trails, there was a single trail. For our park boundaries, we were interested in FDM Park, and for our park information table, that was the same. And for our viewpoint reviews, we were only interested in those that had a trail viewpoint. If I click into settings and go into update view, click next, we can see by this symbol, filters have been applied. If I click into trail viewpoints and go into edit filter, we can see that the filter set, well, viewpoint name includes FDM Park View and FDM Statue. I'll close the window and head back to the Python script. So I've successfully added view definition queries to our feature layers and tables in our view item. I'm going to comment out the first example and I'm going to open up the second example. Now I have put this into two parts, but I'm going to run it as one just to show you the issue that we encounter. As above, we are creating our feature layer collection item. We are getting our item object JSON definition. We're creating our view, exactly the same as the first example, except we're renaming it Park Trails Layer Def View 2. And then we are updating the original item object with the original JSON definition. I'm going to print the view item ID to screen here because I'm going to need it. We are going to get a feature of interest from the county boundaries feature layer in the original hosted feature service. So here we're using our item object layers property and accessing that county boundaries layer. Using the query method, we are going to return a feature set with one feature in there where the county is equal Offaly. We'll assign that feature set object to a variable called AOI fset. I'm going to create a spatial filter object based on the boundary for County Offaly. We use our spatial filter class where we're setting the geometry to be a polygon from feature returned for county equals Offaly. We're going to set the spatial rel, which is a spatial relationship, to be intersects. So any features that intersect that boundary will be viewable in the view. And we'll use the same spatial reference that is returned from the feature set. We then get a list of view layer parameters. So we use our view item that has a view manager property, that is a view manager object that has a get definitions method. And strange enough, we have to supply in the item that we want to get the definitions for. Even though we're accessing through the view item, we supply in the view item. This will return a list of view layer parameters, one per layer and per table. We'll assign that list to a variable called def params. So for each viewer layer parameter, we're going to set the view layer parameters spatial filter property to be the spatial filter above the polygon for County Offaly. Once we set that, we need to update the view. So we use our view item, view manager, and call the update method, supplying in the def params list for the layer def parameter. We'll assign the calling of the update method to variable status, and we'll print status to screen. Let me run this script. Okay, that all actually successfully worked in the first go. Usually I get returned an empty list, but here the full workflow did run as it was intended. This return list here indicates that spatial filter was applied to all the layers and tables in the view item. Now, of course, a spatial filter does not actually act upon a table. What generally happens is that I get an empty list here and I have to rerun the second part by adding in the view item ID. So if you come across that issue, just break down the workflow into two separate steps. I'm going to head over to ArcGIS Online. I'm going to go back to the content page. I'll click into Park Trails Layer Def View 2. And if I click into data, only one trail viewpoint intersects the County of Offaly. I click into Park Trails. We have 3 intersecting trails. And if I click into visualization, we'll see how this data is limited. And we can see our 2 parks that intersect Offaly. We have our 3 trails, and in there we should have 1 trail viewpoint. and all our other parks and information have been filtered out spatially. I click into settings and go to update view. Click next. We can see the filter symbol indicating that filters have been set. There's no way to differentiate between an attribute filter and if it is a spatial filter. By clicking to trail viewpoints and add filter, you can see we don't have an attribute filter, but we do have an area of interest set where you can delete and start over or apply to all layers. So we've successfully created two view layers, one where we used attribute definition queries and one where we used a spatial filter. You could, of course, mix both to further filter the data that is displayed and accessible through a view. Make sure to continue on to the next video in this series and also make sure to subscribe. Take care.